All right, I press record, and now we are officially a go. There's no going back. What's up, people of the world? We are live. It is episode 4, currently December 14th of the year 2021, and you are tuning in to the Tito Speaks podcast. It's a great day to be a podcast listener because, you know what? We're talking about stuff today, and you can listen to it if you want to, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. But guys, how you guys been? You guys been good? What'd you do this past weekend? Well, by the time this comes out, it's gonna be like Thursday, so I guess I could say, how was your week? But I'm gonna talk from a perspective of Tuesday, December 14th. So, we're early in the week at this point that I'm speaking, and we kind of had a crazy weekend. Crazy as in eventful, fun. Friday, Saturday had a lot of out and aboutness going on. On Friday, I went out with some friends. Went to a bar with like 4 or 5 of my buddies, and you do what you do on those nights. You go out, you pull out your trusty Bible, you sit at your designated table, and you read through the scriptures together, and you be good, respectable people that don't interfere with other people's nights, and you just kind of do your Bible study, and completely G-rated, not even PG-rated, because it is completely accessible to all ages. Maybe even if you're in Canada, rated C, which I believe is the absolute most accessible rating possible. But yeah, hung out with some buddies. It was one of those nice almost reunions of I'd seen a lot of these people. One of my friends I hadn't seen in a while, but it's just nice to have like the whole gang back together. We went downtown Toronto, got a few drinks, hung out at went for ramen, got some good ramen. Oh, I was craving that too. Ramen is like it's a crowd pleaser. If you're on a cold day, you just want something nice to warm you up, you can't go wrong. It's like you got the broth and the noodles and the vegetables and just it literally cleanses your soul. I'd say that, and then I'd say it's the heavier soup between that and then if I were to get pho or pho. I had heard actually that it was pronounced pho only in the last few years, but I always thought it was pho, coming from the Asian guy who is completely uncultured. But yeah, any sort of thick, big soup is the greatest hangover cure. But again, we do Bible study, so we don't have any need for a hangover cure. So yeah, that was fun. The one thing that's nice too is that I don't know, like maybe it's just me that's like making this weird realization, but it's nice to go out earlier in the night. So this is Friday night, and we went out, and we left at I left the house at a respectable hour. I have to drive into the city. I'm in a suburb, and it takes like, if it's traffic after work after 5 on a Friday, chances are it's going to be pretty hectic, right? So getting into the city, I have to give myself a little bit of time to get down there. But the thing is that it's so nice to go out early, because I have this thing where I like to get a bunch of stuff done, whether it's Tito related stuff, work, or any what have you. And then by the time I decide to go out, it's like so late. And then there was a little spree in the summer where I was going out with a few of my buddies, like always past midnight. Like I would leave the house past midnight to 1 a.m., which is not natural behavior at all. But yeah, I briefly mentioned on a previous episode that we'd be out late at night, hanging out outside bars, not getting into the bars because we like standing in line. That is the entire goal of the night, is to stand in the line and hope that you're going to get in, but never actually get in. And the characters that you meet out there are the greatest. But again, yeah, this past week we went out pretty early. Like we left at like I left the house at 6, got down there. I want to say in the 7 p.m. realm. And it's nice because you got the whole night from then to just go out and drink. And I'm like, I'm not used to that. Like, I'm used to, especially before COVID, like when I'd go out, whether it's to bars or whatever, I'd always go after 10. So, like, because like I think I was always used to it being a kind of like a late night bar or like club thing. And it was just nice to go out early enough in the day to have a whole night and not get home at 5 a.m. But even with that, I think I still got home at like 4:30, but there was more night to be had. So it was fun. And the other thing I noticed from being out like with friends, like that specific occasion, is I realized that I don't care as much for going to like clubs anymore. Like, I don't know if it's an age thing, and I know there's no age on anything, but I'm starting to feel the whole contentness of just going out with a few buddies, just getting a table. The music's not blaring so loud you can't hear them. You don't have to be right in their ear, kind of whispering sexual things to them. But we do that even when it's quiet. So I lost my train of thought there, but bottom line is I want to sit now. I want to sit and have my friends and whoever it is with me, even if it's strangers, and I want to hear their voices. I don't want to leave the venue outside and then I'm like completely deaf, Like, I think a lot of the times I'd go to the club, that was kind of the case. And I don't know, like there was a recent time too that I went with some of these same friends, and it was just like the least appealing experience, because like it's pretty much what you would want. Like, you would think that's what you want. Like, you go to the packed club, you're in line for like an hour, and you finally get in, but you realize that you're literally like sardines in a what is it, a can? What do you call that? A sardine jar? A sardine tin? A sardine tin. And you're like kind of chest to back to, like, like there's someone on every angle of you, and you just, you're warm just off the pure body heat in that place. And not to snitch on these places, because I know that the capacity isn't supposed to be like, let's just say they were disgustingly over capacity in this case. But yeah, I just stopped caring. It's not even about like a germ thing or whatever. Like, it was more just like, I don't want to be like, it's not even fun. Like, we were saying that night, so this one that I'm talking about now was like a few weeks ago, that we were like, just packed in there, and then afterwards we're all like, that, like, the music was good, but if it was like 75% of the people that were there, or less, like even less, like maybe 50%, it would have been like so much of a better night. Because like, I don't want to be bumped up to this person, like, and then these people like nudging into you, and then it's like the worst to just try to get to the bar to be able to wave down the bartender, because like you have to like kind of weave in through someone and like put your hand on the bar and try and like establish that, oh, I am at the bar now, and I'm a patron that is trying to wave you down for a drink. So like, these are all issues totally relatable to our Bible study, as the point of the story is. So it's just one of those things. When you're at church, you just gotta, go to the mass that's less hectic, less people that are attempting to, take communion, and, you just want to be able to praise God in your own way. And in our case, it's having Bible study at our table at 7 p.m. with the body and blood of our Lord. And all respect to I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. We're going on a little bit of a tangent here. This is a religious podcast, guys. Remember that. This is just a reminder for those of you that don't know, this is an entirely religious podcast. We only talk about religious endeavors and things like of that nature. But yeah, that was my Friday, basically. And again, not the sardine thing was another night. Sitting down with my friends and just having our nice night to ourselves was this past Friday. So I'm just giving you guys a rundown of the timeline. And Saturday is the next day, and Saturday is the big bonanza. Saturday is a big bonanza because me and two of my friends actually went to two, not one, but two live shows, concerts, if you will. The first one, you may know the artist, is Thundercat, bassist extraordinaire, really funky kind of guy who has he has his own. I think he's on the come up. Like he's been. I think since 2017, since his album Drunk came out, is kind of when he really started to pop off. But I think I started to notice that he really started to gain traction after he was featured on "To Pimp a Butterfly," Kendrick's album. For any of you that are fans, like that's kind of like the thing that I think propelled him. And not to be all hipster or whatever, but I used to listen to him back when. Like, this is like, when you're listening to just like small artists and you don't really take in, like, it's just, you just like him for the music. But his first album, I don't know if it's considered an album or a mixtape or whatever, but I think it's an album, is Golden Age of, oh, sorry, there's a phone ringing here. I'm just going to mute that there. Golden Age of Apocalypse, I think that was what it was, like from like 2011. And that really put me onto his music. And I was like, ooh, this guy's funky. And, he just kind of had a very slow, but, steady progression. And then once he was on the Kendrick album, it was like, that was a big deal. And then that same year is actually the first year, it's 2015 now, is the first year I saw him. And he was great then. Like, I saw him at this venue in Toronto that's now gone. I think it's called the Hoxton. Saw him with like two of my friends. And he was crazy. Like, he has like do basses, how many strings do a bass have? I know that, because I remember that my cousin commented on my photo that it was like, is it a different thing that it's a 6-string bass? That's what he had. I'm pretty sure. Like, assuming that that's not what a normal bass has. I know nothing about instruments, so all I knew was like it was cool, it was big, and it had a long neck and stuff, and he was awesome. But this show was like crazy because he would go on these like 8 to 10 minute just like shreds on like bass, and it's just like these solos, and his drummer. I forgot their names, but like his drummer and his, I think it's his keyboard guy, were like going off, like they were crazy, or synthesizer, that or keyboards. I don't know if it's. Again, we are experts. We are a religious musical podcast, and that is the focus. So, forgive me if you guys aren't aware of my overtly intricate ways of describing musical theory, because again, I am such an expert. But yeah, like the new show was crazy. Like he'd go on these crazy long kind of just solos, like and it was so cool to experience. That's the thing about live shows, right? It's like the whole idea is that depending on the artist, like you get a little bit of something you can't get from the studio recording. And he's someone that I would definitely recommend seeing live. And the cool thing is that he went through like his whole catalog, like not like every song, but like he did like kind of, the hits and like some deep cuts from the albums throughout the years leading to now. And it was at this new venue. If you guys are ever in Toronto area, and it's my first time going there. I think it opened either in COVID or just a bit before COVID. Is the venue, I believe, was called History. And if you were to go anytime from in the next while, from hearing this podcast, even if it's 20 years in the future, it's still probably gonna maybe look new, because I assume most venues, they have that new feel for quite a while, unless they attract a crazy crowd that just destroys everything. But no, this venue, as soon as we went in, we were just in awe of just like how well designed it was. That, okay, basically it's like the stage is like on one side, and then the whole rest of the venue is like curved, almost like like kind of like most stadium show. Stadiums are kind of like curved like that to get like a good angle, but this is like kind of like a mid-sized theater of like, let's say 1,000 or maybe less. Like I want to say it's like it's not like it's no Air Canada Center or Rogers Center, I should say, or no, what is it called again? I don't know. Wait, Rogers Center is what Skydome was. Yeah, I mix them up. Scotiabank Arena. Jeez, it just keeps changing. Like all these banks buying all the venues, and they just sound so boring now. It's just like bank names. Like there's this other one, TD Echo Beach, but now it's called RBC Echo Beach. And it's like, oh, you guys are trying to go to RBC Echo Beach? Like it just sounds totally appealing. But this venue history had like just like a crazy like smart layout, or it's just like it's all mostly general admission, so you can walk around the whole time and go to the bar. But like you have a good vantage point from wherever you are to kind of see the stage, unless you have people like that much taller than you. But we stood right by kind of the steps from the area of the bar to the lower level, just like a few feet down, right to, you know, the main GA area. And if you stand right on those steps, you can have a good view. But even like I wasn't really on the stairs, but I still had like a really good view. But I'd say from now on that if I'm to go to that venue, that one's proper. Yeah, he was great performer. The album was great, like the new one. I think what was my favorite song on that? I think it was "Funny Thing." The one that sounds almost like a sequel to. I'm mixing it up. It might be the one that sounds like "Oh She It It's X" from his 2013 album, but it has that, you know, that funky. All of his songs are funky, but I like that he has this very distinct kind of quality to songs. It's hard to explain. Like, it's just you have to hear his music. That it's like the term funky is pretty broad. Like, it's like you got stuff like Anderson .Paak, who's like another kind of vibe too. It's like kind of, they're both kind of old school, but Anderson .Paak I think draws more from like the soul R&B, and Thundercat draws more from like kind of like the guitar, like funky bass stuff, like from the 60s and 70s, like kind of like the more spacey funk, like kind of like the George Clinton stuff, I'd say, is kind of closer to the vibe that I imagine him. But like he also has a unique voice too. Like it's not like I think, I don't know, it's just so good. That's all I'd say. And he has his own unique style. He's a funny guy. He it almost was like a mix of like a comedy set in between. I could tell because like he was just like in between, just like riffing off, you know, telling stories, but he did it in a very stand-up style, which I liked. Yeah, he's a good presence. Every time I hear that guy's coming to town, I'll buy a ticket. So yeah, shout out Thundercat. But later so that's just from like 7 to like 11 p.m. This is all Saturday again. And after that, we went to see Ja Rule at at a club venue, a big one of those super clubs in Toronto, called Rebel. If you guys, any Toronto people know about that, I wouldn't. It's not normally the type of club I would want to go to, but we went because like the tickets were so cheap, and you know it's Ja Rule. You know, anyone that grew up in the 2000s, from like 2000 to like 2003, seeping into 4 is when he was like top of the game. And you know, like he had just hits on hits on hits, and he did like this really concise like 30-minute set just of like his biggest, like kind of a collection of the greatest hits, and it was a banger. So we go into the club before he gets on, and it was like, it's literally out of a movie. We were saying too that it looked like oh no, I have to say the whole thing now. Okay, this is the whole thing that I'm just gonna get into. And it all kind of ties together in this weird way. I didn't even prep how I'm going to say this. But on the way to the venue, we didn't know what it was. And we didn't even know what this was going to be like. Because like Ja Rule, like what? Like this guy hasn't been popping for like 20 years almost. And then like the last thing with him was like that Fyre Fest stuff and like all that scandal and everything. So it's like, who's trying to see Ja Rule? Like that guy's washed up. But, you know, like I'm fan of his music, like in general, like not thinking about all that stuff. Like, you know, if I hear his songs, I'm going to get lit in the club, you know what I mean? Like when I'm at Bible study, I hear that playing. I have to turn to page 300 in my choir book, and we're going to listen to we're going to sing Living It Up with the choir. Like we're going to go off. Like, come on, just realistically. But when we were on the way, we were just kind of like, I don't know what this is going to be. And then as we're driving there, we're kind of like, this is like leaving the Thundercat venue, going straight there. And it's like, it's kind of like in the midst of like this factory area, even though it's like this super club. And like, you know, it just feels like we're passing like these, I remarked that it looked like out of something of like a crime movie, or like something that the villains in like Batman like they're meeting at the docks or something late at night. Like they're meet me at the docks. Like when Batman's like something like he's listening on the radio to see where the deal's gonna happen, and it's like, oh, meet us at the docks. We're gonna do the drop there at the docks. Like that's kind of the vibe, and it felt like we were driving through that, like about to walk into some mafia shenanigans. But then we just kept following it around, and it was just kind of really dingy because this is late at night, and it's like factory areas, so it just seemed like I was creeped out a bit. And then we get there, park up, and as we get closer to the venue, we see that there's a good amount of cars parked. Okay, so it's not just us. There's a lot of people there. We walk up and we start hearing the music a little bit, and I thought, okay, like I'm hearing some music, but I can't tell if I'm hearing his voice, because like I think we showed up a bit late. But I don't remember what time it said he was supposed to come on. But it was around the time that we basically accepted that he might have been on already. Maybe he was done. But we go in, and another thing is that we had been to this place before, the same venue. It used to be called Sound Academy, and it wasn't nearly as like fixed up as it is now. At least like the time that I've been there. I'm pretty sure it was Sound Academy. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it was Sound Academy. I've seen some shows there. But this one's like, it was all dressed up. And it looked like, kind of tying back to that like Batman stuff, it looked like a club, like if you remember in The Dark Knight, or like, again, like any of those like mob movies where you imagine like the mob boss is like up on the balcony kind of overlooking the party, or like John Wick or something. And it's just like this blaring music, but like really fancy super club. Like it had that feel. And my friend, we always like joke about this one bit. A few of my buddies always joke about this one bit in The Dark Knight. If you remember Eric Roberts' character Maroni, he's the main mob boss in the movie. There's a point where Batman's like interrogating people about the Joker, and he's like sitting on the balcony, and like his honey on his side is on the side, yelling. It's almost like what I said about how I don't want to have to yell to talk to people, and she's like, "Can we go somewhere more quiet? It's too loud here. I can't hear you talk." And then he just goes, "What makes you think I want to hear you talk?" And for years we would just joke about that, and we just every time we would just reference that line like just on its own. Those just quotes you just reference. Like we would start saying that for like everything. Not everything, but we would. It's one of the default quotes we would just have like laying around on a rainy day, And he said it was like, it felt like that. Like it felt like what makes you think I want to hear you talk? Like that club. And we were just like dying about it. But it's like, yo, this is lit. Like they're playing like hip hop and stuff. And this club was, at least my understanding, like I don't go to this club a lot, but my understanding of it was that it was a lot of the kind of, I thought it was a lot of the EDM kind of scene of like, kind of that rave scene of house music and stuff. But I think it depends on the night, right? Because this night was just straight hip hop. And again, like I never really go to those kind of clubs, like the kind of the EDM stuff. Like it's just, I haven't, like I would, but it's not as much like my scene. And even now, like clubs in general just aren't as much my scene. But this particular night when I went, I really liked it. And Ja Rule's not on yet. It's just like a club night. So I think there's a lot of people there that might have just been going to go, and they didn't even maybe think about the Ja Rule stuff. But, we had some drinks. They were giving out free popcorn, which was cool. And then when we went to, the bar, we noticed at a certain point, like, the DJ on the stage is like yelling like, "You ready for Ja Rule? You ready for Ja Rule?" And he was yelling that every few minutes just to remind people that Ja Rule was there. And we're like, "Oh yeah!" And then he comes on, and we go up, and it's just like, it was crazy. Like I was expecting him to be super washed up, like and like not even be a good performer. Not necessarily that, but like just I didn't expect to get what I got. Like I went in, and this guy's like, it felt like it was straight out of like 2002 or something. This guy did all the hits, like remember like Mesmerize and like Always on Time and Living It Up and Ain't It Funny, all those tracks. And even if you don't know them by name, if you heard the songs, if you grew up in the 2000s, like those songs, like you just do. Like it, like you didn't have to listen to that music to like just know how big of a deal those songs were at the time. Because I think people kind of forget just how big he was then. Like he was like, before that 50 Cent stuff happened, he was like huge. Like he was one of the biggest things happening at that time. But that was crazy. It was like a time capsule. We were saying that it felt like he was just frozen and just was unfrozen because it felt like him from that era. He didn't even seem that much old. Like he seemed like like fit and stuff. Oh, and the thing, he took off his shirt too, and he was like jacked. This guy was jacked. Because I think I'd seen videos on YouTube of him in the last few years, and like he looked like thicker and stuff. But I swear, like he might have just been prepping for or like now, like he'd been prepping maybe in the last while to like start doing shows because like he was like jacked, and we were just like hyped. Like, geez, like I feel like I'm in grade 2 watching a music video on like BET or like Much Music. Much Music is the Canada channel of like music videos, kind of like MTV equivalent for Toronto. But yeah, that was big. That was a nice thing. Like it was one of those unexpected kind of surprises, and it's one of those things like you just kind of go in and you don't really have much expectations, and I think that's how the best things happen. If you go in with too much expectations for things, like it might just be a bit of a flop if you're expecting too much. And I noticed that like some of the best experiences I've had for things were always, whether it's movies or concerts, it's always stuff that like I don't necessarily expect to be good, like, or I'm just not thinking about it, like I just okay, I'll go, and then it ends up being a pleasant surprise. So like let's say now it makes me think like what other concerts have I been to like that were just like, I don't know, even in general, just best concerts I've been to. I think, okay, one that there's a few that come top of mind when I think of like the absolute best, and I'd have to say that the one I like tend to think of is number one, just for like how I felt at the time, and how like it was also one of those things where I stopped caring about it like midway through like going to the show. So let me give you a rundown. It's 2016, and we're gonna see Anderson .Paak. So Anderson .Paak, everyone knows Anderson .Paak now. He's popping. You got the Silk Sonic, you got the Bruno Mars, but this is when Malibu came out. So this is like the first real step to him kind of like really gaining exposure, I feel. And that's still to this day, I think, my favorite album of his. I love that. That's one of my favorite albums. Like Malibu is like a banger. Like everything, there's no skips on that album. You listen to that through. But we got tickets to see him at, if you're in, again, for Toronto people, at Phoenix Concert Theater. Is it Concert Hall or Concert Theater? But we went there, and again, 2016, that's when the album came out. And I was a big fan of the album, but like I didn't really understand the extent of how good of a performer he was at the time. And that summer too happened to be when, if you remember, this is when Pokemon Go was happening. So Pokemon Go was like just popping then. And I was like obsessed at that time. I'm kind of embarrassed of how obsessed I was at that time. Like, you guys all remember that summer was like crazy. Everyone says, "Oh, summer 16 was like the last great summer," and it's like I can't even like discredit that, because like that was a good summer. Like a lot of good stuff happened that summer, and I think Pokemon Go was like kind of like one of the big overarching things in the background, or even the forefront, that was just happening. And I can't even think of something since that was just so like immersive, for like, it just literally brought everyone together. Like if you remember, there were points where it's just, you would assume that if someone was on their phone, they had that app open. And a lot of the time that was the case. Because this is back a few years before I started the channel, and I was working at that same grocery store that I've mentioned, Metro, as a cashier, and I would see people walking through, and I would see that they're on their phone, and I always like would wonder, like, I wonder. And I look, not to be a creep, but like I would see that they're on the app, and like people in the street, like at the bus station, walking around the plaza, and it was crazy. It was just like a crazy phenomenon, which I don't know will be replicated again. Maybe if something else comes up, but it's so weird how, this is another side note, but it's so weird how that game had such a huge like like it just was huge that summer, and then just suddenly just, but like I feel like people that stayed, like the hardcore fans, like stayed with it, but it was just this huge transcendent thing that for that summer. But so knowing that context, I go to this show and I'm more immersed in this game than I am the show. So, or like before he goes on. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like at this point, like I don't even care. I'm just like, oh, I'm trying to catch these Pokemon, baby. Like I'm trying to, you know, see what Pokestops there are and see if I can catch my Mewtwo or whatever. And this is like the whole time we're lining up, so it's like I'm not even thinking about the concert anymore. And then we go in. We always traditionally would try to line up. Back when I went to shows a lot a few years ago, we'd always make it a thing. If it was a smaller venue and general admission, that we would try to go as close to the front as we can. And we happened to be like perfectly right at the front. And it was a scorching hot day, I remember, and I was sweating. But we go in, and we happen to be perfectly at this giant fan, like one of those giant fans that you imagine, like, I don't know, like you can make someone, like it's one of those things. Like I imagine if that was full power, it would actually be hard to walk towards it because that's how powerful it is. It was one of those kind of fans, and it was like almost right in my face in a good way. But I felt bad for everyone else that it had to blow my odor across the room to them. But you know, I could lie and say it wasn't me. But yeah, so I'm on my phone still, and then this DJ comes. Like there was like this DJ set for this. I don't know who it was, and it was like, you know, it was chill, but it wasn't like, it didn't get me into it. Like it was still there, but I was still just like, I don't even think I think I have respect enough that once some like a performer comes on, or if it's like at the movies or something, like I would just turn off my phone. But I was just like, ugh, like my mind was still on like, man, I gotta catch these Pokemon. And then like he comes on at some point and he's just immediately, like I am just like enthralled. He's such a good performer. He's just such a good performer. Like I will say, like I literally saw him I think 2 or 3 more times after that. But he's like, you know, he does everything. Like he drums. He's like, he has a good voice. Like he's a dancer. Like he dances. And it's just like he's very involved, you know, like he's not like static. Like there's some artists, you know, that their music might be like good and funky and dancey, but they're kind of just certain people that just stand there. And not to rag on anyone, but it's like he's just a showman. Like he's like a performer in every sense. So I would say for sure, if you're gonna see that guy, that like it's totally worth it, because like I completely forgot about that game. He comes on, he did this bit where, you know, he's just on the drums and stuff, and then he did this bit of like, you know, that like dancing, and then like he's like, oh, you gotta get low, and then the whole crowd was actually into it, and we all started like, you know, getting low, like that. If you remember that 2 hops this time, like that's slide to the left, like it was that vibe, but like with his funky music. And it was just, I was so into it, and I just had a big ass smile on my face the whole time, because I don't think I'd been to a show that had, and you know, he had a whole live band, his band the Free National, so you know, we got guy on you know, like bass and synthesizer and guitar and stuff like that. And it just, you know, it really adds to the experience when it's live instruments too, because you kind of just see that it's like, this is a performed rehearsed thing, and it just feels like you feel every element of it, and it was infectious. Like he's one of maybe the best live performers I've seen. But yeah, like I also saw Kendrick came to ACC in 2017 for Damn, when he's touring for Damn. A lot of my same buddies, we went to that, and that was a crazy experience, because like we bought the tickets at the lower bowl. If you know how ACC Air Canada Centre is laid out, I feel like it's similar to, I feel like a lot of like main stadiums where it's like, you know, there's a general GA floor, and that's probably the most expensive, but then you got the bowl, and you know, that goes around the stadium, and at the lowest point of the stadium, like the lowest point before floor where the rail is where we were, and we had to pay, let's just say these days I would not pay that kind of money, unless, you know, if it was Kendrick again, I would maybe pay that, because like, you know, favorite artist, and you know, Damn was a banger, and it's like, I feel like I missed out on him the previous time, because I wanted to see him when he dropped To Pimp a Butterfly, and that's one of my favorite albums of all time till now. Because as you can't already tell, I love the whole funk thing, like the funk, you know, jazzy feel. Like that's why I love Thundercat, Anderson .Paak. But like Kendrick did that And I was so surprised when he did that on To Pimp a Butterfly. And that's a whole other tangent I can go on, just like how like crazy and life changing that album was for me. And but like when Damn came out, it was like Damn like pushed him, like he went back, he went away from the kind of jazz stuff and then went back to kind of like accessible, more hip hop sounds, but like with his mix, with his flavor to it. Like it wasn't like obvious, like he kind of showed that he could still make bangers, but do it with like levels to it. And we were hyped for that show. We dropped, let's just say, in the hundreds of dollars for these seats. And we did our Bible study beforehand. We read some Bibles and had some blood of blood of Christ beforehand, and did totally respectable things leading up to the show. You know how they say the whole pre-sermon. We did the pre-sermon at my buddy's apartment, and we completely coherently stumbled all the way to the theater. And I remember there's this point where we were in the elevator, like leaving my buddy's apartment, and it's all of us, and we just acknowledge just how utterly destroyed we are. And like this is all beforehand. We're not even at the show yet. And like this lady at another floor comes in. And then my one friend, like it's just like one of those awkward silences in the elevator. I think it's just her in the elevator. And he says something along the lines of like, after like this, moment of silence. And he's like, man, I'm about to get so freaked. Like just like whispering it, but like not really whispering it. And then like you could see that she was kind of laughing and like, oh God, these guys are done. I got to get out of here. But I could see that there was like a smirk. But yeah, we were just like, yeah, it was a fun time. We stumbled all the way to the venue. I thought we were going to get kicked out, to be honest, because we were not in our right minds, because we were just so into our religious, we follow the commandments and all that. But we went to pick up our tickets. Yeah, we went to pick up our tickets. And this is a whole other talk that came up kind of recently, that my one friend, he has like an encyclopedic knowledge of like just like stuff related to like pop culture, whether it's like mostly movies, mostly movie related. He could like tell you like the year. Like I'm like okay with this, like I'm pretty good, but like if it came down to me and him like having like an argument about like a very technical aspect of like when a movie was released or something, what year it was, or like what actor was in something, like the actor's fine, but it's like what things this actor was in, or just like he'd more likely be able to like pinpoint that sort of thing. Like he'd be able to call that out. But so knowing that, we went to line up for our tickets, and he goes to me, and this is like just around the time that I think it was either coming out or it might have come out, The Mummy, like the remake, the Tom Cruise one. And he's like, dude, that's Sofia Boutella. And if you guys know Sofia Boutella, she's the actress that played the mummy in that. And she was also in Kingsman. I think it's the one with she played the character that had, I think it was like she had no legs or fake or prosthetic legs or something. And she was like a badass, but she was a badass without legs. And she just, crazy kung fu fighting stuff. But I was just like, the rest of us were just like so certain that it wasn't her, just because, not even because like I thought it looked like her, but I just was so like convinced that there was no way that she would be there, because I thought she was like, I think he just figured that if people are like celebrities, that they got the back room, they got the back door, oh, right this way, red carpet special treatment. But like some of them are, it kind of like is like a realization too that people are like super regular. But the thing is that we never went up to her, because we kept arguing like, that's not her. Like, that's not her. Like, I would still say that even if like me still acknowledging that if it was her or not, like I still stood by my argument that like, okay, there's no way that she would be here, because like she's like a huge star. Like there's no way she's gonna come where us peasants are getting our tickets. But like he was so sure, and he's like, dude, that's her. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I don't think so. And then we left and we forgot about it, and we never went up to her. And later after the show, I creeped her social media, and I don't know if it was before or it was after or even during. I think it probably was after that I see that she posted a story on Instagram just to check like that she was at the concert in Toronto. So I still, to stand by my beliefs, I'm gonna say that wasn't her, and it's just totally by chance that the real Sofia Boutella actually was there, and this other girl just happened to look like her and also be at the show, but she did not buy her tickets, and she was in her penthouse box seat sort of thing. So, I am not admitting that I am wrong. I'm sticking to my guns that exact person in that moment was not her. But yeah, so imagine like throughout this, and we're just like completely like we're just plastered. We're plastered. That's the term that we started saying again recently. I love it. It's one of those like frat boy terms, but I just love it. It's like, dude, I got so plastered last week. I got so plastered, bud. But yeah, we were just plastered, and we had to, go through security and all that, like, the metal detector, pick up our lanyard, because we bought the VIP. So we balled out on the VIP, and we went there, and I honestly was so certain that, like, when we're picking up our stuff and, like, security scanning us, that they were going to kick us out. But I think they were just, like, they were more disgusted. Like, I was stumbling around, but I think they were more amused at it. And, somehow we got in. And the funny thing that if you're, like, just, like, a fan that spends money outside of your price point, like, enough that you have to save up for a ticket like this, like, I'll just be transparent. It was, like, let's say I spent, like, $400 on this. Like, I wouldn't normally spend nearly that much to go to a show. But, it's Kendrick. I justified he hadn't been to Toronto at that time since, like, for, like, 4 or 5 years. So I was like, when's the next time that's going to happen? And he hadn't been since. So I do not regret that experience. But when you buy a ticket that expensive and you're, like, a true fan, you'll be surprised. And I don't even know if you'd be surprised, but expect that a lot of people in your section are not going to be as big fans as you are. Because a lot of this is, like, rich, older people that are just there because, I got it for free or something. Or, like, they always get hookups. And they're not real fans, though. So they're just, like, sitting there with their drinks. And we're literally, like, going off. Like, we're just, like, having the best time. We're completely plastered. Just sipping on our, our overly priced drinks as well. Something about those stadium drinks. They're too much, man. But we look around, we're just like, wow, these people are like, they make me sick. Like, the people that spend that much money to just stand there, it's like, it makes me like wish that like the real fans, the people that you could see actually going crazy, like in the upper bowl, the people that get the nosebleeds, I think tend to, I don't even know if this is like a true thing, but are the real fans, because it's not about the money. It's just about being there. And the thing I'll actually say too is that our spot, regardless of the people, vantage point wise, I would actually want to buy tickets there again if I'm at that venue, because being, like I said earlier, if you're at the lowest point before floor, you actually have a better view because like it's just people way below you, and then you're at the lowest point at this rail, but you're elevated still, right? Because you're still in the lower bowl, so you get to hold onto the rail and you have this amazing view. And yeah, it was like I actually would not have preferred to bought floor tickets over what we got. And I think going forward, depending on the price point, I would like to buy tickets in that same spot again or in that same general area. But yeah, that concert was crazy. Like, and I didn't even get to Kendrick as a performer yet, and I'm just talking about the whole experience. But Kendrick, oh man, like, doesn't need to be said. Kendrick is a goat, and I don't mean an animal. He is literally so like he has the energy. He also had the whole set design. Like, he probably worked it out. You could tell guys like him are like true artists. Like, you see, this guy doesn't release stuff all the time, but when he does, it's like you can see the craft in it. Like, he really thinks about the whole thing, like every aspect of it, especially the videos and everything. But like, him forming, not even including forming the album and like the narrative of his albums, that's a whole other thing. And then the artistry level is just, you could tell it's just like he cares about the genre, and that's like inspiring to, I think, to anyone in a creative field, is that you could just see the care that goes into what he does, because it's like it was this whole like performance. It's like Kanye level of artistry, But that's another thing I regret. I never seen Kanye live, and I think the last major thing in Toronto that he did when he came to Toronto was that Pablo thing. And for any of you that remember, this is also, I think that would be Summer 16 also, or around, but the Kendrick was 2017. But when Kanye did that tour where he's like standing on that platform that's like, is there just like a platform that is just like above and people are just directly below and there's lights on them, like that tour? I missed out on that, but I think I think one or two of my friends went to that. But yeah, I'd love to see Kanye live. That's another thing. And then, oh yeah, there was that Drake thing too that happened. The what was it? The free Larry Hoover thing that him and Drake did after squashing the beef. Funny enough, now I want to get into this whole thing. That it's funny. Like the night that they squashed that beef was the night that Dave Chappelle performed in Toronto, and they were all in Toronto. So if any of you saw that on Instagram, like Chappelle and Kanye went to Drake's like mansion, his fortress in, I think, what is it, Bridle Path in Toronto, the rich area, and they squashed the beef once and for all. And I'm of the mind too, like I don't even know how much I believe this stuff to be authentic. Yeah, like I people have their opinions on it, but it's like I almost believe that all this stuff is publicity, because it's like what, like they release their albums like perfectly in line with each other, and like it's like this whole battle of what album what. If you guys remember in like 2008 when Kanye released Graduation, he did that with 50 Cent too. So it's like this stuff seems very orchestrated, and it's like they might not ever admit that it is, because it's like wrestling. I view it as wrestling. It's all like they'll never tell you that it's fake, but you can kind of just put it together. Oh, and for those of you that are into wrestling, I'm sorry if I revealed the Santa Claus secret, but no, you know what? Wrestling's real. Wrestling's totally real. And The Rock just fights people. He just fights people authentically, and then decided to become an actor, and then goes back and fights people every once in a while, does SmackDown or whatever it is. What's the Raw, or what do you call it? What's the big event called again? I don't know. Someone could tell me. I forgot what it's called. But yeah, the Kanye Drake thing is such a smart, like assuming that it's orchestrated. I don't know how much I believe any of this stuff anymore. Like anyone that's like right in the midst of the public eye, when they have these crazy dramas and stuff, like I don't know how much I believe that it's real, and like I don't even really pay too much attention to it to care. But like when I actually think about it, I'm like, I don't know if this is real or not. But it's it's nice to see like, oh, Kanye and Drake are friends again, And I think it was Drake's call. I totally think Drake is such a good like marketer. Like he's just like a good businessman. He knows how to manipulate what people want. And I like to think it was his doing that he probably told Kanye to do his whole greatest hits. Like he did all of his bangers all the way from College Dropout. So, if you're Kanye fans, I feel like everyone to some extent knows a good amount about Kanye. But, he has like, it's crazy to think just how long that guy's career spans, that just how much of an impact he had over the years and just the evolution of his career. But the thing is always an innovator, and he never really had the thing about looking back. I feel he always wanted to do the next thing, innovate. So I think he kind of went in his own tunnel mindset, that like someone like Drake had to like come to him like, yo, like why don't you do like your hits, like because people love your old music. I don't think it's like one of those things, like it's not going to be till it's all said and done that he's going to like realize about the breadth of his career, but he's always like just thinking ahead, which is great. But it's like, like there's only one Kanye, right? So only he can be him. But it takes, someone from a different perspective to tell you like, dude, why don't you try this? Why don't you try something a little different? Why don't you give the people what they want, And apparently, yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I can only assume, like, knowing that Kanye never did anything like that in a while, like I almost am certain that was Drake's doing. And yeah, one of the neat things to happen this year, to kind of wrap this year in a bow. Christmas coming up now, and we're a few weeks out. Oh, another thing, guys. You know what I did? While we're in this kind of holiday talks, I was actually rewatching The Grinch for the first time in a while, actually. And I know How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey one, to be precise. And I always knew it growing up, but it's one of those things, like being older, that I go back. Just how god level Jim Carrey is as a comedic actor. Like, he's just, it's not even funny how funny he is. Like, he is just, he commits 10,000% to everything he does. And if you listen, do this right now, do yourself a favor. Either watch the movie again, or at the very least, just to see his vocal range, listen to his rendition of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" again. They have it on Spotify. They have it on, you can watch the clip on YouTube or whatever, or watch the movie. I'm pretty sure, depending on where you are, I watched it on Netflix. It was on. But he's just, listen to that performance. He does every voice in that song. And if you hear that, it's there's at least more than 5 to 10 different voices that are heard there. And there's a part where it's even this sultry kind of jazzy part that you're I can't even, I have to hear it, but it's almost like he's doing a sexy girl jazzy voice, and that's him. Because I think growing up I didn't really realize that he did all of that, because it doesn't, when you watch the movie, it's not showing him saying all those things. But I'm almost 100%, I'm almost 1,000% sure that he performed that whole thing. So if you watch it, it almost makes me sad that he didn't do more with singing, because it's his vocal range is actually crazy. I would literally put Jim Carrey on the level, in his craft, in his field, on the level of a Daniel Day-Lewis, or Gary Oldman or something like that. He completely immerses himself into in the sense of comedy. He's just a physical performer, everything. It's just, he does everything. He's so, the biggest flack he'll get is being if people don't like the zany aspect of him, well, I guess if you don't like that, you don't like that. But for fans of comedy, it is literally something to behold. It's just, the only other people I could think of that are on par are obviously you got Robin Williams, but I can't think of, at least off the top of my head, someone that's as, in that sense, kind of so immersed in the bit. I really want to actually watch the recent Sonic movie, because I heard he's really good in it, and I heard the movie's pretty good too. And I heard it's kind of classic Jim Carrey. But yeah, he's just, he's one of my early comedic heroes as a kid. I think he might actually be from back then, when I was a kid, you got all the classics. You got The Mask, you got Grinch, you got Liar Liar, you got I don't know why I'm blanking right now. You got it'll come to me. But I literally watched, so he's just one of those people that just embodies the 90s, he embodied at least the comedy aspect of the 90s and the 2000s, a little bit of the 2000s. Oh yeah, Bruce Almighty, obviously. I know ones will just come to me as I'm talking, how did I forget that? I actually want to go back and watch it, because in the last few, I think since doing this channel, even just the last year or two, I started to really appreciate, really dive into the history of comedy, and just really start to appreciate the art form more. Because I was always into comedy, but I never on a research level really dived into watching stand up and stuff like that, and sketch shows. I said this already in the podcast, but in general, I want to watch. I've seen bits growing up and just random clips of In Living Color, because so many people got their start there, and Jamie Foxx, that's another one that's a goated comedic performer and a serious actor too, that some of these people, a lot of people, it's crazy how so many people got their start on these kind of shows. You got In Living Color and SNL, and I think Mad TV came later and stuff, but it's cool that that's kind of like the way that so many of these artists came up. But yeah, that's speaking of the channel though, I think by the time I release this, I have a new skit which will be out. For you guys hearing, it'll be yesterday, but for me it's tomorrow, because again, recording on the 14th, but this is going to come out in about I'll release this in like 2 days, because I don't want to do double post same day, kind of let people breathe, because I know if you have too frequent of uploads, like sometimes people don't care to watch it. A lot of people, I don't even know how many people care to watch this in general, but I just like doing it, so I'm just, I'm gonna give it offset it a day. So yeah, my new one is it's a video about fighting your cravings. So yeah, like the whole idea of like the whole thought process you go through when you have like a really intense craving for something, or if like you're addicted to something and you just really want it, but like the way that you try to tell yourself no, I can't, but then that part of your mind that tries, literally that part of your mind will just tell you every excuse why it's okay to do that, and like even going to the way of like tricking you and like telling you that like, oh no, it's like, it's not even that you really want it, it's that you happen, no, it's not even that you need it, it's that you happen to want it. And like in the skit I go into that. But yeah, like that was something like when I was workshopping that, or just like like brainstorming that, it was me walking home and I just was having those kind of thoughts, because I'm a big sweets person, but I like to lay back, and like I don't even buy chocolate anymore. Like I don't go out of my way to buy it, but like sometimes I'm just like but I think it's universal for everything, whether it's like smoking or whatever vices you have. But yeah, that's the new video, and hopefully you guys like that. If you see that when it came out yesterday, I hope you like that. Yeah, but I've been listening to a lot of Christmas music too. Did I say this already? I forget. I'm gonna say it again if I didn't. But like Christmas music is like, now we're fairly in the season to be allowed to listen to Christmas music. But Charlie Brown Christmas, can't go wrong. I have that on loop. It's just so relaxing. And then I have it in the same playlist that I weirdly have the Grinch stuff too. So I like to listen to that. But Charlie Brown Christmas, honestly, it's the one Christmas soundtrack that I could listen to whenever, and I don't even like attempt to, like, I don't know, I just don't view it as like it gives me the holiday feel, but it works on it stands alone. It's just like a good jazz album. It's just relaxing, chill, so that's my recommendation for the day. If there's any takeaways from this, I guess it's listen to Thundercats. You got your Anderson Paaks, you got your, what else is it? Your Jim Carreys, you got the Grinch, listen to the Grinch soundtrack. And watch that new video. But yeah, I also, when I'm productive, I also like to listen to, there's certain music that I can, when you got that upbeat, like kind of thing that puts you in the zone. For me, it's the Social Network soundtrack. When I'm doing any sort of writing or anything on the computer, research, like any sort of computer work, editing, if it doesn't involve me needing sound right away, the Social Network soundtrack is another recommendation that I'll have. I'll literally listen to that soundtrack like when, like, I can listen to that soundtrack if I want to like really get in the zone and get inspired creatively, and even watch that movie too. Like I love that. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, Social Network. That totally puts me in a creative mindset, or just not even just creative mindset, but like an ambitious mindset. So I think if any of you are trying to get your productivity up, I would leave it off on, because we still got a bit of the week, but it's Thursday for you guys that are listening to this, so maybe you're going to be watching Spider-Man and stuff end of the week. But if you still got a little work for the rest of the week from now, listen to the Social Network soundtrack if you can afford to listen to music, or allowed to during your work, whatever your work is. Puts me in the zone. But yeah, guys, I see that we're just about coming up on an hour. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. I know you guys like to, I don't even know if you do like it, but I like to hear myself ramble. And again, these are just my notes. I don't know why I talk to myself as if I'm talking to people, because this is not going to be released again. We have established on previous podcasts that this is just my, my personal memos that I leave on my computer. So I hope this isn't uploaded to the internet. And yeah, guys, like, big thing coming up, Spider-Man. You're gonna see that this weekend. I don't know. I'll probably talk about it next week. Like, it's inevitable. You're gonna probably see a million other things talking about that besides me. But yeah, I didn't even get into that I'm seeing that Friday. That's a big deal too. So yeah, a lot of stuff happened in the holiday season. But this is the nicest way to, I think, wrap up the year, is that movie. I'm so incredibly excited for that movie. It's like, for anyone that, Spider-Man fans, like movie fans, like, it's a big deal. Like, I see why people are saying it's like Endgame level of excitement, because it's, combining the franchises. I think I said this on the last podcast, but it's relevant, so I'll get into it. But guys, on that note, it's about an hour and a minute into the podcast. I went a minute over my unofficially. I don't even have a set time for this. I just like having it land at about an hour. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend. Hope you get some relaxation in you, get to chill a bit, and watch out for that new Tito stuff, because it's coming up. We got more coming for you guys. Okay, always a pleasure. Have a good one. Bye bye. I'm gonna press stop now. Bye.